Thank you so much for hopping on and tuning into this live episode of the Live and Share podcast. And if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This podcast is all about having honest conversations with successful people about how they are dominating in their industry, as well as being committed to their faith. So today's conversation is no different. We're going to be talking to a very special guest. I can't wait to have her on here very shortly, and we'll be sharing about how to protect your peace. So do me a favor, if you are catching the replay, comment replay in the comment section so that I know that you caught this at a later time. And as you hop on, say good morning, hello, and share the video. Super excited to talk about how we can protect our peace. Very excited. Those of you that are passing by, make sure you share the video and get ready to comment. We'll be adding our special guest very shortly. It is Tasheekia Perry-Harris. She is the founder and author of a book. She's the founder of an organization that's called Crowning Our Daughters for Success. And she's also the author of Dressing Your Inner Beauty. And she's an evangelist as well. So very excited to have her on this morning. Don't forget to share and to comment and let your friends and followers know that we're on. It's going to be all about how to protect your peace. All right, we're going to bring in our special guests. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Thank you so much for being on with us this morning. You guys, this is my special guest, Tasheekia Perry-Harris. She is the founder of Crowning Your Daughters for Success, which is a mentorship organization. She has been speaking all over Florida and across the U.S., mentoring young girls about the importance of self-esteem and so many other areas. She's also the author of Dressing Your Inner Beauty journal, and most importantly to me is she's an evangelist. So she got that secret sauce that so many people underestimate, which helps to lead and guide everyone to be successful in whatever industry God has placed you or called you to be in. So thank you so much for being on today. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So we're going to get right into the conversation. It's all about protecting your peace, and especially the times that we're living in. There's a lot of information that people are consuming. People are also forgetting that we got into our homes because of a pandemic, right? And then now we have all of this racial tension that's going across the world. And sometimes we underestimate where we have the responsibility of protecting our peace and just not consuming so much to where it hinders us to show up in the world. So I want you to help us to understand, how can we protect our peace?
Well, I want to start off with scripture. And
Awesome.
peace is powerful. A lot
Yes.
of people think money is power. A lot of people think health is power. And all of those things are powerful in their own rights. But peace, when you're not healthy, peace. When you don't have the finances, peace. When your relationship is raggedy and out of control, peace. When children are bombarding you, peace. When work is overloading you, peace. But there's a scripture that says, Isaiah 26:3, it says, you will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Peace is powerful. Peace is your power. A lot of women in particular, a lot of us felt for so long that our power was in our looks, our features, our shape, what we had on, if we can get somebody to look and compliment. But your power is in your peace. Paul said it the best in Philippians. He said, I have learned to be content. That is a peaceful state. I have learned to be content if I have, if I don't have, if I am full or if I am empty. That peace is a process that he had to learn because of experiences that could have taken him out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the fact that you got straight to it, how we connect our accomplishments, the
Oh,
things
I'm going.
that it's okay. It's so interesting how we try to connect our accomplishments,
Mm-hmm.
the things that we go after, our goals, achievements, money, career, connected to our peace. We feel like once I check this box off,
Mm-hmm.
I now made it.
Yeah.
Once I got this car, the house, the relationship, I've made it. But everything that seems to be so normal for us has completely changed. And going back to the basics of how the Bible teaches us that when our trust is placed in the right
Mm.
areas in Him,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that gives us the opportunity to have complete trust in who He's called us to be. I want you to talk about the power of our mind and the responsibility that we have when it comes to protecting our mind and the things that we allow to filter into our mind.
Oh, that is so powerful in itself as well. I'll tell you quickly. I was taking my son to kindergarten, and he see the enemy is trying to tamper with this saying. It's not gonna work. Let me just fix this again. My
Okay.
son, he was pouting on the way to school. Like every morning, he would have this look, and I would say to him, "So you're gonna give your peace away?" Like peace is what God gives to us. It's a mental thing. God gives us peace. And that means you're going to allow something or someone else. The enemy does not want me to say this, so I'm going to have to
Keep
not use my
going.
stand. So the enemy wants us to be in a place that we do not use our mental to bring forth that peace. So mental is so important because that's the seat of your choices. Mental is so important because your mentality controls your choices, controls your responses. And if you do not get that imagination cleared up, if you don't get those thoughts filtered out, then what you're going to do is you're going to imagine life empty. You're going to imagine life negatively, and so that is going to be the response that you give situations and people. So keeping your mental healthy is so important because that is the only way you're going to even know that you have peace.
Absolutely. And our greatest gift that everyone has, no matter your socioeconomic status, doesn't matter if you have a degree or just a high school diploma, is your
Mm-hmm.
imagination. You literally have the opportunity to place your mind in a state to think about whatever God has placed on the inside of you and to see yourself in that particular area. But at the same time, the enemy knows that he can infiltrate our
Mm-hmm.
imagination to
Mm-hmm.
place negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions on the inside of us to where now we feel defeated.
Mm.
Now we feel like we don't have that same opportunity where you once felt joy. You might have felt excitement where, oh my gosh, I can see myself reaching
Mm.
this potential. I see myself getting to this next area. But then all of a sudden, just because a small seed, a small thought enters in, you now have lost track of what God has placed on the inside of you.
Mm.
Talk about the importance of keeping those gates closed
Oh wow, gates are
and
so
paying
important.
attention to those small seeds that try to infiltrate our
You
minds.
know, gates are so important. When you think about a gated community, they it's a gated community because they want to keep certain people, certain mindsets out because they're trying to keep their peace. They're trying to keep their belongings, you know. And so when we think about the gates to our mind, we have to understand just as there are gateway drugs, there are certain things that lead to addiction. We have to understand that that there are gateway seeds. And when we start to allow even the smallest bit of negativity to be planted in our mindset, then what it is a ground for the enemy to work with. The Bible tells us don't give him a crack. Don't give him a crack, not even a crack. Look at a crack and you see how small a crack is, but ants can get in a crack. Flies can get
Absolutely.
through a crack. Rats can get through a crack. And so when we think about the cracks that are in our gate, this is why we have so much racial tension. This is why we have so much low self-esteem. This is why we have so much demonic competition going on with our fellow humans, because we've allowed cracks to stay too long within our gates. And it's so
Yes.
important.
Absolutely. And it's important to not discount those cracks in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
because just like you mentioned, it leads to this cycle.
Mm.
It leads to us developing habits. It leads us to now feeling defeated, as if that small area is who you are in its totality, when it's
Absolutely.
not true. And everyone experiences some level of negativity.
Absolutely.
Everyone experiences some level of doubt, but it's what you do when it comes to you. It's where do you acknowledge it and come into agreement with it, or do you dismiss it? Talk about the importance of those two areas.
Well, I wrote down last night, many people have stereotyped Black women. And
Mm-hmm.
because for so long we had to be quiet. For so long we could not say, you do not have the right to talk to my husband like that. You do not have the right to talk to my child like that. You will not, and you will not talk to me that way, or I feel this way about this awareness or this cause. And
Mm-hmm.
so what has happened is, now that we are speaking out, we're looking angry. We're looking like we don't have peace. We're looking like we have lost control, because so many people are used to us being in the little corner, just telling Betty and Sue what's going on and not broadcasting what's going on. Let me encourage somebody right now. Peace is release.
Mm-hmm.
Peace is when you confront and when you release, you will receive the relief. I'm not saying you go out there and you release in a non-productive way. I'm saying peace is releasing in a productive way, in an assertive way, to get your point across, your opinion across, your cause, your initiative across. And this is where I believe we have to be. Peace is relief. When you begin to release and relieve yourself of the things that you are feeling, and you begin to truly productively target the things that's going on in your family, in your community, and within yourself, you're going to feel peace. Peace is not staying quiet. People need to stop making it seem like, oh, she's so peaceful. You never hear her talk about anything about racism or Black Lives Matter or anything that's going on in our economy. She only posts selfies and fashion. She is so peaceful. I like being on her page. That is not peace. That is avoidance.
Mm.
And that's when you
I
don't
like
have
that you said
peace.
that. Right. And sometimes you have to be conscious of where you like to keep things bottled in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And as women, especially, we are used to go, go, go,
mm-hmm,
take care of this, take care of that. And we discount protecting our peace
mm-hmm.
comes with self-care.
Absolutely.
Protecting our peace comes with self-care, and acknowledging when certain things come in our way and hindering us from actually not being conscious of, okay, it's time for me to step back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
It's time for me to actually take care of these areas in my life that seem to be a hindrance.
mm-hmm.
I want you to give us some tips on women, especially now. They are speaking out, they're being vocal about the things that plague their communities, which we've been seeing for so long that's been happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
and or they may be doing it at their job where they're trying to take up for their coworkers, or they're having to wear the cape of defending their families and making sure everyone else is taken care of. What are some things that women particularly need to be conscious of when it comes to self-care in the area of protecting their peace?
You have to know, my course teacher used to say, you need to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And that means
Yes.
pick your battles. That means eat the meat, spit out the bones, because when you're trying to eat fish that is boned fish, and that those bones keep getting in the way of the meat, you can't enjoy your meal. So what I
Right.
say is pick your battles. When you know, I was just talking to a family member, and they were not at a peaceful state. Okay. And so when you're not at a peaceful state, self-care is decreased. Self-care is limited in your life. And someone made a very rude comment. We were at a cemetery, and someone looked at my nephew's grave and called him a thug. My nephew was murdered in January of this year. And what happened was an outburst, because emotions went to flying and people went to going back and forth. And I was one of them. I was quite offended by that. Okay. So self-care is not being offended, because the Bible says you will be offended, but woe to the one who offends you. You will be provoked, and you will be angry, but do not sin in that place. So self-care is all about knowing, now, is this my battle, or is this God's battle? After my response, because I did respond, and I responded very assertively, because it was very inappropriate and I needed to confront that. Okay. But weeks after, a family member of mine, they still was battling with that thing. Right. And I said, well, you know what? I'm good. Well, how are you good? I said, because that's not my battle anymore. I said what I needed to say. I expressed exactly what I needed to express in that moment. And you know what? Now I give it to God, because it is up to God to change the mind and the hearts of people. We have to know that self-care is not about massages and manis and petties, and massages is not about having me a day. Self-care is about knowing how and when to give that battle to God, because that's when you can rest. When He has the battle, I can rest, because He's never lost one.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. For some of us, we feel like, okay, I'm going to say something, I'm going to address this, but we allow it to fester.
Mm-hmm.
We allow
Mm-hmm.
ourselves to meditate on that thing and not giving it to the Lord. And most of the time now, people talk about meditation all the time. They're talking about, I spend my 5 or 10 minutes in the morning meditating to clear my thoughts and minds.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Go right ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also meditate on negative things.
Absolutely.
You can take a small situation and then allow yourself to meditate on it over and over and over and over and over again.
Mm.
And then when you start to do that, that leads to problems sitting on the inside of you and
Mm.
on the inside of your heart, to where you have this filter
Mm-hmm.
where you're not able to see clearly while you are interacting with other people. So one situation has now gone from that small seed again. That one situation has now planted a seed on the inside of you where you felt like, okay, I'm going to give it to God. But yet you're still giving your mind that same cycle. You're
Mm-hmm.
still thinking about it. You're still massaging on it. You're still meditating on it. So
Mm-hmm.
now this filter has hindered you from being able to be your complete self.
Mm-hmm.
Give us some signs and symptoms where people can start to say, oh, that's a filter from 10 years ago. That's a filter from 5 years ago.
Whoa. Well, I tell you, my nephew's mom sent me a book, and the book talks about grief and how to get through grief. And so many times people say, you'll be okay. Just deal with it. You'll be okay. So and so went through the same thing last year, right? And so this book, it breaks down what grief really is, and it breaks down the important parts of getting through your grief moments. And grief is any loss that you've received: job, husband, someone to death. Grief is any loss that you feel is traumatic in your life. Then you are grieving. Okay. And so one of the things that I asked her to do, and I said, we need to go and we need to write down every loss we've had that we can remember, from losing a dog, from losing a grandparent. Let's write down these losses and let's give them an assignment. Because what we normally do when we lose something, what we do is we harper on that thing, and that thing gives us an assignment. That death gives us an assignment to be depressed and having a pity party. That divorce gives us an assignment to be mad and all men now are dogs and we hate them. That thing gives us an assignment to hate another race because of what 100 or 1,000 people that represent that race has done. So I believe if we're going to overcome those filters, we have to give them assignments. You give every piece of pain in your life an assignment. I had to give divorce an assignment. I had to say, divorce, you will not define me and you will not control me. You are an experience, and that is it. I had to say that to divorce. I had to say it out of my mouth. And so a lot of people are not practicing self-care and they're not experiencing peace because their issues and challenges are assigning them attitudes and character that is bringing more condemnation and grief upon them.
Absolutely. And then if someone stays in that position, one thing that the Lord has really been dealing with me about is generations, right? And a lot of the things that we're seeing right now in the world is based on cycles of bad habits that have been passed down from one generation to the next generation to the next generation to the next generation. I can think of right now the way that I show up in the world. I can identify, oh, I got that from my mom. I got that from my dad. I got that from my grandfather. I got that from my sister. And just because I'm able to identify the good, I also have taken time to identify the areas that are weak.
Absolutely.
And to recognize, okay, where did this come from? Did it come from a good place down my bloodline? Or did this come from a place of hurt or pain that was passed on from one generation to the next generation to the next generation? And the reason why it's important, the whole premise of our conversation is talking about peace. If you allow yourself to go down this rabbit hole of, I'm just going to, like, if a situation happens to you and you felt like you dealt with it, but yet you still meditate on it. Now, because you have that wall or that filter up and you haven't dealt with it, you haven't given it its assignment and not the assignment on you, you now have this open opportunity to pass it down from one generation to the next one and to the next one. And you're a mentor to so many young girls. And every time that you're talking to them, you're having to remind them of who they really are through a new perspective, through a new lens, instead of what may have been perpetuated through generational cycles. Talk about how cycles can infiltrate our good and bad behaviors.
Listen, let me tell you, there's a phrase called vicious cycles in the spiritual world where the enemy wants to penetrate the mindset to the point that you learn and you apply what you've learned, and that thing begins to control you. Cycles control because cycles are repetitive. Cycles are consistent. And so what I want to suggest is, just as we've learned certain things, we have to unlearn certain things. You don't have to teach a baby to pee pee. A baby is going to pee pee whenever that body releases, right? You have to teach a baby to pee pee on the potty. That is a learned behavior. And so many people have learned things that are non-productive. So many people have learned things that are hateful. So many people have learned things about themselves that are not true. And so my suggestion is, you got to unlearn it. You have to look at that situation and say, you are not the truth. You have not set me free. As a matter of fact, you have given me more burdens, and you've put me in more bondage than freedom. And so the way we unlearn is the same way when someone tells you, I'm going to be there, girl. And you're like, girl, I'm getting dressed, girl, I'm getting dressed. And she comes 30 to 45 minutes late for a whole year, right? Then you're the fool for getting dressed before she rings the doorbell. So you've learned to get dressed. You've learned to wait on that friend. You've learned to just be like, girl, where are you? I thought you were coming. But then now she's tapped into your time, your precious space, because we can't get time back. And now you've realized I can't trust her. So I have to unlearn this behavior. I can't get dressed before she gets here. I can't prepare myself an hour before she gets here. She needs to ring the doorbell, then I'll get dressed. That is how you dissect unlearned behaviors. And this is how we apply unlearned behaviors. We have to look at that thing and we have to unlearn it. We have to look at it as, and when we don't see it as a lie, then we continue to buy it as truth. You have to, number one, say, you are a lie. You are not real. You're not real in my life. You are defeated. You are not victorious in my life. Jesus said this, so it trumps what you have taught me. So I got to unlearn you. I have to unlearn you. And that is what we have to do to cycles. We have to defeat cycles by unlearning them.
Absolutely. And unlearning is sometimes uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is.
It doesn't feel good all the time. You may feel frustrated, like, why am I even doing this? But when you understand the value of, I'm going to unlearn this behavior so that I can have real peace in my life. I can become the full whoever you are, who God designed and created you to be, instead of developing this broken person. You now become, instead of you taking the time to actually deal with whatever those cycles might have been in your life, you've now said, okay, if you don't want to do that and you stay on the other side, you've developed this broken person. You've become this, you've used to walking around with a cane. You've become comfortable with walking around with one shoe and one shoe not on. One foot is totally blistered and the other one's completely covered, but you've settled.
Yes.
You've allowed yourself to settle in a place that God never designed for you to be.
Absolutely.
And yes, it may feel uncomfortable with putting that one sore foot in the tub and getting the nourishment and the healing that it needs. In order for you to put the sock on, in order for you to put the shoe on, you may walk around with a little limp a little bit and feeling like, man, this is totally different. Your friends and family around you may say, girl, it don't even take all of that. You were fine before you went through. Why are you going to counseling? Why are you seeing a life coach? Why are you going to the gym? Why are you not talking to this? It don't take all of that. You just be you. When you begin to acknowledge the shortcomings and the areas in your life that might have been cycles from years ago. And saying that is not who I'm going to be. Doesn't matter how old you are.
Absolutely.
It's so important for you to get into that space to say, you know what? I'm not going to continue in this way because I understand the value of, first of all, the value that you possess, and then also the value and the impact that you have on someone else's life.
Absolutely.
Talk about how people underestimate mentorship. And sometimes we think of mentorship is like, oh, I have my mentor and I'm going to, go ahead and be there with them and mentee or take them wherever they need to be. But sometimes we are mentors and don't even realize it. Talk about that.
If you have any type of influence on any level, that other people feel guided by your words, your post, your business, your books, your style, you are a mentor. Now, you can be a productive mentor or a non-productive mentor. Every single day, with the influence that we have, we are mentoring other people. And I believe that mentorship has become a buzzword that people like to use, but they don't understand the work that it entails. They don't understand the sacrifice. They do not understand the time that you have to actually put into other people to actually be a personal mentor. But we're always mentoring, we're always guiding. But personal mentorship, for me to say I am going to mentor you, that means I need to talk to you. That means I
Right.
need to correct you. That means I need to give you constructive criticism and applause. That
Right.
means you have to be open. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people say they want mentorship, but pride won't allow them to listen. A lot of people say, I need somebody in my life. But as soon as I say to you that you're making a decision that is going to harm your future self, then I become Miss Holy Holy and judgmental. And so people really don't want, many people really do not want mentorship. They just want the title. They just want the title of mentee so that people think they're connected with someone. And they just want the title of mentor because they want people to think they're in control of someone. It is a huge difference.
Huge.
The title and
Huge.
the execution is two different things, but
You're
it's
walking
very
side by
important.
side.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you're walking side by side with people.
Mm-hmm.
You're with them, the good, bad, and indifferent.
Absolutely.
And even when you talk about the influence, even if you're someone that's not even on social media like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
your influence of your home,
Yeah,
how you show up to your loved ones, how do you
absolutely.
show up to your coworkers, you're mentoring them in some way, shape, or form. And you have to be cautious of how you show up. And
Mm-hmm.
going back to our original theme for this conversation about protecting our peace, it all starts with in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It all starts within your
Mm-hmm.
mind, and you being cognizant of things that, okay, is this going to cause my peace to be disrupted?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to address this in the moment? Do I need to hold them or let it fall?
Mm-hmm.
Or, and then if God gives you the release to go ahead and deal with it in that particular moment, after you deal with it, making sure that you let it go,
Mm-hmm.
that you don't continue to perpetuate these cycles and
Absolutely.
meditate on things that are negative, that will hinder you and cause you to have this filter in life that has you now saying, okay, I'm okay with walking with a limp, that you've become comfortable in that way. We're not living life on those terms
Mm-mm.
anymore.
Mm-mm. Not at all.
We're not shortchanging who God has called us to be.
Mm-mm.
Yesterday's Bible study, I talked about how a lot of us have been comfortable with being 50%
Mm.
instead of getting to 100.
Mm.
Some of us have gotten comfortable with being God just injecting with your super fruit instead of becoming the fruit.
Mm.
And going through that process doesn't feel good all the time. But when you understand your value,
Mm.
when you understand the worth, the thing that's on the inside of you, that it just didn't come from anywhere, that God wants to use you in that place, then you begin to show up in life differently.
Mm.
As we get ready to close, in your book, talking about dressing the inner beauty,
Mm.
most people think you are a fashionista from head to toe all the time. But there is inner work
Mm-hmm.
that you lead and guide so many people on.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a few nuggets of inner work that people need to start implementing today.
One of the things that I would suggest is as soon as a situation approaches you, because situations sometimes find us, ask yourself this one question: is it worth my peace? Is it worth that inner power that I have to make a difference within myself and others? Is it worth it? Ask yourself some questions. We always want to interview others, but sometimes we have to do a self interview. Was that kind? Was that the right way to go about that? Begin to do daily interviews on yourself, and then you can do a self check before others check you. And that is how you keep your peace, because when someone has to check you, so many people were checked. I don't know why people get offended, because check me, because checking me is love. Checking
Right.
me is making me accountable for what it is that I have done. Check me if I am outside of those boundaries. But when we do self checks first, when others check us, it's just a confirmation, and we are in love with that confirmation because it sealed what we already knew in the first place. So do self checks. Ask yourself, is it worth the peace. And last but not least, do not ever undermine who you are based on how other people see you. Never undermine your worth. If you crumble a $100 bill and throw it across the room, and one person looks at that bill and say, I'm not picking up no crumbled money, guess what? Another person will see it, flatten it out, and go buy a pair of shoes. Don't ever underestimate who you are based on what you've gone through. That $100 bill was crumbled, it was stumped on, it was passed by, but guess what? It is still $100. Don't ever underestimate who you are in Christ Jesus. And you don't have to be behind a pulpit to encourage people. You don't have to be behind a pulpit or in the walls of a church to cause people to be inspired by the word of God. Your peace is important because your peace is your power. It is an inward strength and inward relief that God gives us when our mind is on him. So I want to lastly encourage someone, get your mind off those bills. Get your mind off who left. Get your mind off that job. Get your mind off that man. Get your mind off that children to the point that you have been assigned disturbance. Get your mind on God so that he can assign the peace that will surpass your own understanding. Get your mind on the one that can help you and heal you. Get your mind on the one who said, I will never leave you or forsaken you. Get your mind on the one that says the enemy will come one way, but my power will cause him to flee 7 ways. Get your mind on the one that will bring peace and release and relief. We got our mind on too many other things, and we're wondering why we're so bombarded. We're wondering why we're so agitated. We're wondering why we're so frustrated and downtrodden, and we've been in pity parties for 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, because we keep our mind on the things that want to assign us what God has not said was our purpose. We keep our minds on the thing that's leading us outside our peace box into a box of chaos and confusion. Get your mind on the one that can deliver you, that can save you, and set you free, is my suggestion.
Oh my gosh, girl, you about to make me run around this house. Oh my goodness, because sometimes we try to overcomplicate it. We try to make it seem like you got to put the right music on and light the certain candle and go get the massage and got to do this and got to have this in place and all of that. When you put your mind on the Lord, he will give you perfect peace. When you turn around and say, God, I'm going to read your word and believe your word and strengthen that relationship first, everything else is just fly by night.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't have that hold on the inside of you. So I want to say thank you so much for reminding us the very simple thing of protecting our peace.
Yes.
Starts with our relationship with the Lord first. And going by his principles and what he tells you to do. And then allow that to lead and guide you in the right direction. Don't allow yourself to be bombarded by everything else that's going on in the world. Don't allow what your family might have said, your kids got going on, your job got going, all those other things don't mean nothing at all. But you have the power on the inside of you. You are valuable. You are valuable. And it is worth protecting that value.
Let me say this really quickly, because I feel in my heart that so many people are going through people problems. And people problems will decrease your peace. And so you're feeling stretched because you wear the cloth of Christ, right? But there are some people that do not want to deal with you in peace. Listen to me. Jesus turned over tables, and he is the God of peace. But because there was an injustice going on in the temple of God, Jesus didn't put his peace aside. Jesus didn't throw his peace away. Jesus didn't say, okay, I'm going to put the Bible aside and I'm going to be G, and I'm going to put us on the background for now. He didn't do that. We have too many people problems that make us feel like confronting with a righteous anger means we are disturbed. I am not disturbed because I have peace.
That's
I
right.
have a righteous anger, and a lot of people have a righteous anger. And when you convey that, people will begin to show themselves. The angel alike would begin to reveal his true colors. The wolf would begin to take the sheep clothing off when you start standing up and using your voice where it matters. This is called a people problem. And so when people start attacking you because in peace you are confronting and you are releasing and you are relieving yourself of what it is that you need to say about a circumstance or a situation, then people will start to leave you. People will start to judge you. People will start to unfriend you. People will start to screenshot your messages and passing them around. But let me tell you what peace does. Peace, when you know that your motives are right and holy, then you can have a righteous anger and peace at the same time, because peace don't leave believers. We give our peace away. So are you willing to hold on to that peace as you confront? It's called a people problem. We're going to have to start confronting people. As a matter of fact, after this live, I have to do some confronting, because there are situations going on that I don't stand for, that I have to confront. But I'm confronting with love and peace. You know what I'm saying? You have to understand the difference. Because I spank my son, or because I get on my son, I love him and I'm peaceful. I just need that behavior to become unlearned. And we have to know how to do that and love people at the same time. Confrontation does not mean anger all the time. It means we got to confront some hard issues. Confront those hard issues.
Absolutely.
Confront those people issues in your family, in the community. There are people that are released from your life. It's not that you don't walk in peace. That means that person's time is up. So a lot of people are like, am I at peace because my sister not talking to me? Am I at peace because my cousin not talking to me? My coworker, they're not talking to me, and I just feel uneasy about it. Stop feeling uneasy about people leaving you. Stop feeling uneasy about people not wanting to be around you. Stop feeling uneasy like you did something wrong because someone has made a choice that they can make not to be involved in your life. Keep your peace.
And
Keep
there
your
you
peace.
have
And
it.
I am now done.
And there you have it. We have our marching orders.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows what it takes for you to protect your peace. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to say thank you so
Mm.
much for taking time out of your busy schedule to stop by, to give us words of wisdom on how to protect our peace, and to understand that is a responsibility
Yes.
that we have, that we can't give away to someone
No.
else, and that there are certain things that we need to do to make sure that that is happening. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for your time. Thank you for those that are watching. Do us a favor, share the video, let your friends and family know where they can come and listen to the Live and Share podcast, where I have honest
Mm.
conversations on how to win at life and not discount your relationship with the Lord. I love you guys with the love of God. I'm your girl, Marilyn Shaw, and I'll talk with you soon.
Thank you.